Welcome, listeners, to episode 34 of the Running Guide podcast, where I aim to provide informative content and interviews with elite athletes and health professionals from around the world, like in today's episode, where I'm chatting to an Aussie runner out of Yass in rural New South Wales, who's been consistently fast on the road and track for well over a decade now, and he's still finding there's plenty left in the legs with a recent PB. Looking forward to hearing the story behind this journey. Welcome to the Running Guide podcast, Josh Johnson. How you going, mate?
Doing quite well, thanks.
Fantastic. No, great to have you on the show. How's your running going at the moment?
Well, my running's been going pretty okay. I've been having a pretty consistent year of training.
Yep.
A couple of little niggles coming up, but I've been seeming to be on top of them. So hopefully look forward to doing the national 5,000 metres or the 1,500 nationals, which is in about 6 weeks.
Yeah, excellent. And you mentioned you're up at Perisher, a bit of altitude training up there.
Yeah, we tend to spend a fair bit of time up in Perisher over the summer. So
Yep.
My group usually comes up here for most of January, and we pretty much head back early Feb, and we try and get up here when possible. So even if we have some weekend stints, we'll come up if there's a long weekend or around Easter usually, and just try and maximise our amount of time to altitude exposure.
Yeah, sure. Who's that group with?
We're with Dick Telford's group, so it's a running group out of Canberra.
Philo's probably finished up there, has he? And then because
Philo comes up here a bit as well. Like I've come up to Perisher for a lot of years. Like I enjoy my time up here.
Yeah.
I've been to Falls Creek a lot, and I think my first time up at Perisher was with Philo's group. So I've been coming up here for well over about 15 years. So yeah, it's been a good time. It's really good to be up here, and yeah, it's pretty good running. It's a good spot to be.
How does Perisher compare to Falls?
Yeah, it's always a bit of a sticky question. I think it's always going to be a bit horses for courses. I know that Falls Creek is kind of the Australian altitude running mecca, but I always find that from Canberra it's really easy just to drive down the highway. Like it takes me not too long, over 2 hours, but don't tell the police that. And I get up here pretty quickly, and yeah, it's just a great spot. Like you're a bit higher than Falls Creek, and you pretty much get to have a pretty remote kind of setting. It's a bit more stoic, I find. You get a little bit more room to yourself. The trails are pretty rugged, but you can also head down the mountain to Jindabyne and do a lot of training a bit lower. I think it's one of the best places for living high and training low. You really get to maximise that kind of system. Yeah,
sure. So what's the minimum time you normally spend there?
Well, this little stint I'll do will be about 3 to 4 days, so not too long. But if you mix it up with a tent, you can, add a little bit of extra time. And I think those short bits of exposure tend to add up a little bit. You even if it's just a mental break, it's just great for really getting out of Canberra and just changing your routine up. It's always very relaxing to be up in the high country, I find.
Yeah, definitely. And how big's the group for this weekend?
There's just the 4 of us. So Dick, our coach, Rory, and Jai. So yeah, we're just doing a bit of training up here and just keeping it pretty easy.
Yeah, right. So there are specific sessions that sort of Dick have you do up there, or is it just being up there and the exposure of the altitude and the climate and that?
There's nothing really changes too much. You can pretty much, take the training that you do down in Canberra and replicate it at altitude. I know that if we have a bit of a longer period up here, say if we're spending, about a month up here, we tend to ease into it. But if you're just getting a weekend stint, you can tend to get into things pretty quickly. So, yeah, you just pretty much follow your normal routine and, yeah, don't really overthink about it too much. But I do know that if you're up here for a bit longer, you kind of want to take a few easy days to probably just get used to that kind of settling in period.
How long have you been with Dick for?
I've probably been with Dick for a bit over 5 years now. So yeah, it's been really good. He's definitely kind of changed some things to my training, added a few things, and we've just got a really good squad environment. So I find that a lot of the guys that I run with, it's been a really good point to be motivating each other, having a lot of guys to either travel around with who are my age, and we all seem to build each other up really well. So yeah, it's a great squad environment as well.
Yeah, sure. And what age are you?
I'm turning 29 in June, so I'm starting to get on a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Oh, well, you might be upping the distance soon, but I'll get to that. So let's start back. So you grew up in Yass, is that correct?
Yeah, so I mean, I was pretty much raised in Yass. I went to high school. I went to a boarding school in Sydney. So
Okay.
from year 7 to year 12, and then I moved back to Yass and I guess Canberra when I finished year 12. So yeah, I mean, I started my running out in Yass when I was a little one, and I mean, my mum pretty much dragged me out of bed on pretty cold mornings and would just go for a bit of a jog and you do your usual kind of high school cross country. And I wasn't much good at it, but you kind of just end up falling in love with it.
For sure. And your mum was pretty handy as a runner herself. A couple of
Yeah, she got
Aussie
down
singlets.
to yeah, that's it. She's done world mountain running, and she definitely kind of got me kind of pretty interested in it. And she never really pushed me too hard with it, but it was always something that was kind of in the back of my mind that you can head out and then just enjoy running. It was something that was always pretty fulfilling to do.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Your mum being Fleur Flannery, just for the listeners. So you studied at UC?
Yep, so I studied physio at UC. I started
Okay.
out at CO. I actually, incidentally, I started out at ANU and I didn't last very long there. I wasn't really enjoying what I was studying too much, and I guess I thought, what should I do after that? And I was getting a couple injuries, and I always enjoyed massage therapy. So
Mm-hmm.
I started doing massage therapy at CIT in Canberra, and it was very good to do. There's Jimmy Barker. There's some great guys there, and it was just one of those things that kind of got me kind of in love with that sense of you have running, but you also have the kind of looking at it from a recovery and healing perspective, and kind of cascaded from there and went on to do physio at UC. So and I finish in 3 weeks, so I've got 3 weeks left for the undergrad physio degree, and I'm all done. So not too long left, and it's been a bit of a journey, but it's definitely one thing that's pretty good to do at UC is kind of mixing up that training and running. And Dick's a professor at UC, and the UC facilities are very good as well. And UC is pretty supportive as far as the university goes with running and kind of holding on to your academic requirements. So I find it's a great spot to be at.
Yeah, no, for sure. And just having that knowledge and as a runner would just be gold. I guess there's more focus on you not to get injured being a physio because you have all that knowledge and you might sort of think this shouldn't be happening. You know what I mean?
I feel like it's a double-edged sword a lot of times. A lot of the physios it was almost my fear to do physio was that I'd get injured if I do physio to study, because so many of the guys who I know who go into physio who are runners have quite a few injuries. But
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
know, maybe it's just one of those things that you find out that you have a natural kind of understanding of the body. But yeah, it seems to go a lot together, that a lot of guys who do running go into physio. I know that in our squad we had about 6 guys who were doing physio and who are runners, from James Nipris, Hugh Williams, Rory Hunter. Yeah, we had quite a few, so it was quite interesting. I think it was the main occupation within our squad.
And I'm sure you know if you speak to most runners, they'll start talking about injuries. So it probably just comes across that way. But
Yeah,
it,
that's
it,
true.
it's pretty hard on the body, as you know. So if you go a year without a niggle, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, mate, let's talk about some of your PBs. Starting with 800 metres, I'll just get you to talk through some of these. Starting 1:49.87. Now, that was in Canberra in April 2016.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because my previous 800 PB from that was close to, I think it was 8 years before. I ran 150.8 in ACT as well, and I was about 16 years old. I think I was maybe top 10 quickest guys as a 16-year-old over 800. So it took me a little bit of time to beat that. So it's kind of lucky I went sub 150. So I'm glad I've got that one in the pages.
Yeah, that's something I'll talk about soon, but it's amazing looking at your running and the times for them that you've stayed fast for so long. And that's what I'm interested to hear more about. Let's move on to your 1,500 metres. So this is 3:39.40 in Sydney, March 2018. So, I mean, fairly recently. So 3:39.40. Tell me about that one.
That's probably my favorite run. There's just no other way of looking at it. I
Mm.
honestly think you get those runs where you just think, if I don't go, I mean, I think I can go quicker than that, but I just know that that night everything clicked. And in running, you don't get that very often. You just have that feeling that you don't even notice the pain. You don't you don't even, everything was just surreal. Like I just got the perfect sit. I got to sit behind the 2016 Olympic gold medalist, and I was pretty much following him down the back straight. And yeah, you just can't put it into words. Sometimes you just get that one run, and if that's it, you just have to make the most of it. And yeah, I think that was one of those few opportunities where everything just clicked at the right time.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fast time. I was just wondering what the qualifying standard time were for the 8 and 15 for Tokyo, and you're only 4 seconds off both the 8 and the 15. I mean, people might say 4 seconds is a long time in that distance, but it just goes to show that you've got a lot of speed in those legs of yours.
Oh yeah, it's an interesting one because in 2016, I guess the qualifier, it was like 3:36, and I think the qualifier for Com Games, so it was a little bit slower than that as well. So yeah, it wasn't too far off, but Australia's got a lot of depth, and there's still quite a few guys in front of the queue. So yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it's certainly 1500. Yeah, Australian running is booming at the moment. It's really exciting. All right, 1 mile, mate. I don't know if this one hurts because it's so close. 4:00:83 in Sydney, 2015.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. It wasn't the most perfect conditions that night, but I just got behind the pacer and made it a pretty honest race, and that was kind of started the whole Albie Thomas night of miles. I know that Jordan went sub 4 there. I was leading Jordan down up until pretty much the back straight, and it was just a great night. And I think it kind of started that December early meet, great time to be out at the crest, and I'm with the Bankstown running group, and they're really supportive. And I know that Matt Whitbread goes to a huge effort to put on a great event that night. So yeah, I mean, that's probably one of my favorite events to do. And when things go well there, it's a great track to be on.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about preparing specifically to try to get under the 4 mile?
I think it's going to happen. Okay. I haven't honestly, breaking 4 minutes for the mile is one of those things that I guess, every runner wants to do. And it is on my mind a little bit, but I think it's also one of those things that you can't put too much of an overemphasis on it. Like we don't get a huge amount of racing opportunities in Australia, and if you're trying to chase miles, I do like the Victorian mile championships, but at the end of the day, there's those opportunities to run a quick 1500s, and you really want to try and capture the quick 1500 or the quick 5K. They're kind of the main events, but the mile is still probably the most nostalgic event. And fingers crossed, everything goes right. Hopefully, get a good mile out, but I don't think I'll change too much in the way of preparation. I think the best way to think about a mile is just run your best 1500 and hopefully you have the legs for another 109 meters.
3,000 meters, 7:57.99 up there in Sydney, November 2016.
Yeah, that was a good night. I know that there was a few of us trying to chase a pretty quick time that night. And
is that your first sub 8?
No, I went sub 8 at ES Marks, I think, as well. Okay. So I think I might have a 59 in there. And
okay.
Yeah, but I think that was it was a good night, and we were sharing the lead a little bit. I know that my pacing was a tad off, but yeah, I was pretty happy with that run. That was a good one to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. Was that what event was that?
That was the New South Wales State 3000 champ. So I came second to Jordan. I think Jordan might have run pretty close to the New South Wales State 3000 record at the time.
And Jordan was with Dick Telford at the time. You guys were training together, or
we were training at the time, and he was in phenomenal shape. So we just tried to work together and get the most out of each other that night.
All right, 5,000 meters. This one was just set a year ago, 6th of Feb, exactly a year ago. 5,000 meters, 14:03.70 down there at Lakeside in Melbourne.
Yeah, I mean, Lakeside isn't my favourite track. It was a good night. I mean, you got great guys in it, from Stewie McSween, and it was a national championship. That summer was a bit of a weird one because, as everyone would probably recall, it was very smoky, and we couldn't go up to Perisher that year. So it was a little bit disappointing not to be able to get the usual altitude camp in. But I went out with Rory and we stayed in Townsville. And every day it was like being in a sauna. We did a bit of a heat camp, and I felt like I got a lot out of that. Honestly, like I think people might not capitalize that on enough, especially that our domestic summer gets pretty hot at times, and some of that heat exposure, you definitely feel pretty good. And it was a pretty warm night that night, and yeah, I was pretty happy with that run. Like, it'd be good to go sub 14 soon, but once again, you just got to, hope the opportunities come to you and not always try and take the risk. You just really want to try and make sure you're just getting that good training out.
All right, 10,000 metres, Zatopek 2016, 29:30:57.
Yep, that was a fun night. I still remember that night pretty well. It was horrendous conditions, but and I got lapped by Paddy Tiernan. I think that was when Paddy Tiernan was pretty much having the reins on the domestic circuit before Stewie really, catapulted to kind of the level he's at. And I still remember seeing one of the photos, and I was, sitting behind Stewie, and I think it might have been, 3 or 4K into the race, and probably one of the last times I probably got to be that close to Stewie. So that was a good night as well.
Yeah, horrendous night. And what was it? Windy?
It's just windy. It was windy. Yeah. It was wet. Like, I just remember that. I think I came 5th in that national championship, and it was just a very, very rough night in terms of the conditions. And 10,000 meters. When you start wanting to count down the laps and you still see 10 laps to go, it's not the most fun event. You got to be very mentally tough to enjoy 10K on the track, I find.
Yeah. Have you done many of the 10s?
I think I've done a couple now. So
yeah.
It's a tough event, and I mean, it would be good to get another one in, but you really got to prepare yourself well for them.
All right, 10K on the road, 30:14 down there at Lornie in Launceston, 2012.
Yeah, that's quite a while ago. So Lornie's a great run. I think it'd be good to get some more 10Ks out on the road, but especially with the new shoes that are out. But we'll see what happens. Like, it's always a bit of a trade-off. I find that road running used to be a bit of an injury risk for me. I'd always pull up pretty sore, but I do find that with the Next Percent shoes, you can pull up reasonably well from the road. And I mean, I ran a recent 5K on the road, and I think I ran about 14:40 on a IAAF certified 5K with a few turns, and I find that you pull up pretty well these days. So hopefully you can amend that road run.
Sure. What about the Dragonflies? Are you wearing them on the track, or?
Yeah, the Dragonflies are great on the track as well. I think
do you find like the Vaporflies? Do you pull up better with the Dragonflies as well, or?
Way better, honestly. Like, I think it's a bit of a game changer.
Yeah.
Just in the way you pull up, I think is great. Like, it really changes things quite a bit.
Now, I can see probably why you haven't moved on. I mean, you said you're about to turn 29. Was that right?
Yeah, 29 in June 3rd, if anyone wants to wish me happy birthday.
Oh, there you go. I'm June 4, mate. So, yeah. You're a crazy Gemini like me. Yeah, I was going to think, why he hasn't moved on to the half and the marathon, but because you've just got so much speed left in these middle distances. So is there a certain distance that you're trying to actually nail down, or you're focusing on, like the 3, the 5, the 15, or what's the sort of plan?
So that's kind of an interesting one. I mean, I've been asking myself a bit of the same question. I know a few people have asked me. It's a bit of a trade-off. I mean, there's so many guys who are running so well in so many distances that you really can't find a soft event anywhere from pretty much 800 through to the marathon in Australia's domestic running. And I mean, it'd be great to be able to put on an Aussie singlet, but for me, it's just trying to run pretty quickly. I'd like to try and get an 800 PB if possible, but I don't think I'm going to necessarily chase that. But I really just want to have a good domestic 1500. And I've got a slight calf niggle at the moment. And if I have to give national 5,000 a miss, next week for that kind of opportunity to make sure I get the most out of myself in the 1500, I think that's where I really would like to see myself in the finals. If I make the finals for the 1500, that's my blue ribbon event, I guess. Personally, it's kind of where I focus most of my attention in my training. It is the metric mile. It is always that event that kind of combines a lot of the systems in running. It's aerobic. It's still highly anaerobic. It still involves a bit of that power, that tactics, and I think for that reason, I'd still like to see if I can get my best out of myself with a good 1500. And who knows what's going to happen this year with running overseas, but I'd like to, given the opportunity, to try and chase some quick 1500s. So at least for maybe this year and next year, I'll still see if I can, get a good couple track races out. But after that, I've done some pretty long runs. Like I've done some quick longer distance 35k runs in training, and I've done marathon studies where I tend to do pretty well, believe it or not, with some of the longer stuff. But I'm really yet to try and get that mileage under my belt that would be required to perform well in that, anything that's up from 10k to the marathon.
Have you had that discussion with Dick, and you sort of on the same page there to just keep focusing on what you love doing and what you think you can improve on before you sort of move up? Or
yeah, I think like Dick's marathon philosophy, I guess, and my kind of understanding of it is that you still really need to focus on your middle distance stuff. Like it's kind of a bit of an outdated way of thinking that the guys who are running the marathon are just shuffling along. The guys who are running sub 210 are still doing pretty hard, fast stuff on the track. Like they might be doing a bit more volume, obviously, but the top guys are still world class over a lot of distances. They can still run a very quick 5. They can still run a quick 10. I know they don't often do a quick 15, but even if you look at a guy like Farah, how quick he is over the 15, or a Kipchoge, all those guys still have a lot of speed in the legs. And at the end of the day, I guess one of the main things that they change is that they're getting a bit more volume done over the week, and maybe a little bit less in the way of some of that anaerobic stuff. But overall, I think that's a lot of consistency, a lot of high mileage, and maybe just kind of taking away some of that really sharp stuff is probably the main change. I mean, it's just one of those opportunities. Like I guess I'm a little bit injury prone, and I am a bit wary about how much mileage and intensity I can take at the same time. So I'd probably need to err on the side of downplaying how much intensity I do if I wanted to go up in distances.
Sure. And what is your sort of current volume, and where do you normally try to keep it?
I find that I perform my best when I'm above 120k a week, but I find that my ideal kind of range is between 100 and 120. I don't tend to get a lot of niggles. Yep. Once I start to increase the intensity, 2 hard sessions, 3 hard sessions a week, and I'm above that 120, I notice that I need to be pretty careful about what I'm doing, and I guess that's something I've been a bit more mindful of in more recent years, is just to everyone has Strava, and everyone can pretty much, there's a lot of guys who post up what they do on Strava, and I notice that if things aren't going 100% right, I'll start to draw things back a little bit and try and gradually reload. But yeah, overall, I find that if I can hold 120 throughout the year, I think last year my average for the whole year was about 120k. And more recently I've probably been up to 140 in January, and I've probably been a little bit below that in February, but hopefully I can start to get that back up.
Yeah, and you're trying to mix up like the terrain you're doing sessions on, like Dick loves the grass track down there, Stromlo, or
like I'm probably a big advocate in the way that you don't really need to be on a track to run well. Like I know that going on the track once a week is generally pretty helpful for kind of understanding how you're going. It's always a good kind of it ticks you along. I guess mentally tells you what times you're hitting. But overall, you can get your best running done by hills, grass track. Stromlo's amazing. All the body only really understands how the intensity is going. So yeah, I just love getting out there, and I love being in nature with it. So for me, if I'm on the trails or away from the track, I tend to feel a bit better with it.
Yeah, certainly. And have you sort of implemented, or are you currently doing any type of strength and conditioning, or mobility work or anything to try to get on top of things? Do you find that when these niggles or injuries happen, I guess one is it the same injury, or is it the fact that you can see that you just had you've loaded it up too much, or is there anything there you can sort of put your finger on? Or
yeah, so I guess my mindset is I kind of think of things a little bit differently than most people, with my perspective on a lot of injuries. And I know it's not super popular, but I find that I'm a reasonably strong guy. Like if I wanted to, do deadlifts or squats, like I can lift a fair bit. And I'm not a huge advocate of just doing, I guess, standard strength training for running. I don't think it's necessarily a thing that's going to really catapult a lot of people's running. I mean, I wouldn't detract if someone does find that that's what they get a lot out of. But for me, I find that I get the most out of mobility work. I find that for me, I can get quite stiff. I notice I get pretty stiff around my hips and like lower back. And once that starts to happen, I think, a lot of lower limb injuries from anything from hamstring, tendinopathies to Achilles tendinopathies. Tendinopathies can start to happen when you get pretty tight in that lower back or tight around the hips. So for me,
Yep.
if you can really start to make sure you're quite free around that area, things tend to go pretty well.
Do you try to get like treatment, or do you just sort of do it yourself, so like self prehab type work, or?
Oh, geez, like, look, honestly, like I always try and get, if I can get friends to get on top of some of the stuff for me, I love doing that. But I've been around some really lucky people who have kind of held me together over the years. And, from Craig Purdom, who's one of the AIS physios, I mean, I doubt I'd be running without some of the stuff he does. I love doing, Josephine Keys mobility work. I find that that's really helpful for anyone out there listening. But, there's been a lot of people who have been very helpful for me. Brad Hiskins has been very helpful at Clinic 88 in Canberra. So those people they're gurus at what they do. And, I find that for me, a lot of that mobility, kind of neural stretching really helps. But I guess it's a bit controversial, but I'm not a huge fan of trying to get in the gym and, do 140 kilo deadlift or 140 kilo squat. Like I think that can just kind of push me a bit over the top neurally, and I can get a little bit tight from it. Where already those muscles that are fatigued from running.
Yeah. I think there are a few runners moving away from that straight sort of compound muscle, lifting squats and deadlifts and that. I think it's more, a lot of guys are doing more sort of isometric one leg type stuff, or drill work, or like you said, mobility. A lot of the stuff. I think
drill work's very essential, like plyos, drills, like that's really good. I think, there's probably always a time and a place where you can, if everything was going perfect, you didn't have anything major coming up. But I mean, I've spoken to the, former Australian national record holder, Alex Rowe, pretty good friends with him. And I remember he did some strength stuff, but he also said when he was running his best in Europe and got the equal Ralph DeBell's Australian record, like he wasn't doing any strength when he went to Europe. A lot of guys when they go to Europe aren't necessarily following their normal winter strength program because they're on the go. So they're probably a little bit more out of the gym, and they're probably doing a little bit more of the other stuff. And I just would say, if you can err on the side of caution, do you really want to fatigue already fatigued muscles? But, I would never detract if someone thinks that that's what's, kind of holding them together from doing it. I just say that, there's other things you can focus on first.
You mentioned you'd love to head overseas to do some racing. Have you actually been over the years and done a bit of racing over there?
Yeah, so I guess like probably one of the kind of weird things about me is that I kind of really love cross-country running. Like I find that some of my best results have been in cross-country races, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's like, maybe mentally I can kind of zone out and just get away from everything. But my first overseas race was for World Junior Cross Country, which is in Jordan. And I think I came about fourth in the trial or fifth in the trials to make the Australian team. And I think I was the youngest Australian male to make the Australian junior cross country team. So that was my first trip overseas, and I really enjoyed that. And I mean, it's really good when you're a junior. You kind of, AA kind of helps you out a bit to get overseas, which is really good. But more recently, I guess 2016, I went overseas with Jordan Gussman, Matt Dempsey, Hugh Williams, and Dick Telford, and did a few races over there, which was really good. And I guess that was the last time.
Was that Europe or the States?
No, that was the States. So
yep.
I haven't done any I've done a couple races in Europe, but nothing major. Like it's not like a Diamond League or anything like that. I've just done a few of the local races over there. But I guess I've done some of the pretty quality meets that are for offer in North America,
yep.
West Coast and Canada.
Yep.
And I love it. Like the US when I went in 2016 was just it was such a great place to train. Like Flagstaff is probably one of the best places to train in the world, where you get to see guys like Mo Farah train before they're about to race in the Olympics is pretty incredible. So, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. Was there ever a thought of going to the States under a scholarship program and spending some time over there?
There was, yeah. Yeah, so that was actually always my kind of my high school dream. Like that was really what motivated me a lot when I was in high school. So I was coached by a great guy who's now in Melbourne, Sean Williams. So Sean's, he's coached a lot of great guys who have gone overseas, from Morgan McDonald to Ollie Hall more recently, and he coached Benny St. Lawrence. And I guess a lot of the guys he's coached who went overseas had a lot of success. A lot of them have stayed over in the US. And yeah, that was a big motivating factor for me. But I started to get a few injuries when I was year 12, and I guess my running wasn't really going that well. And I kind of tried to focus a bit more academically on just getting, everything down packed at that point, and wasn't overly focused trying to get back into running. I was offered a couple places, like I ran a good junior Zatopek against Geordie Williams, but at the end of the day, I just thought my body wasn't really in one piece, and I probably wasn't in the best mind frame to go over there. But I would have loved to go to UCLA if I got to choose anywhere, be on the West Coast, and I just love that kind of climate. And I did an exchange program to UC Irvine, which is the university where one of the best US miler guys went to back in the day. So yeah, it's a good place. I love any guys who are running who they're not sure what they want to do, or try a different program. I'd say going to the US is a good opportunity, but I'd also say to them, like, Australia is probably one of the best places you can run in the world. There's some of the best coaches in the world, and the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there are a lot of guys you hear about the success stories and some of those names you mentioned, but obviously there's a lot of guys that go over there and you don't hear about again. Just they don't absorb it. It just doesn't work out for them. You know what I mean? But it would be hard, obviously. I guess it's like any story. Some work out, some don't.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think for some people, it's going to be the right fit, but I know with other people, it's probably just not what's right for them at the time. And I'd tell those people if they're going to come back, you can always tee up with a different coach or the coach I was with previously, and that people should really just try and stay in the sport, I guess.
Really, the way you're looking at the moment with your thinking, with your running and where you want to go over the next 12 months, you mentioned just try to get faster over the 8 and the 15. That's pretty much your main focus?
Yeah, I'd say probably a little bit more towards the 15.5. Like, okay. I think, the 1500 is still a very strong aerobic event. And I think to maximize, at least for me, I think to maximize my ability in it, I'm going to have to be very aerobically strong. So, I mean, a lot of guys would probably have the mindset of going through, maybe trying to, increase that 800 speed, do more lactic sessions and shave off the 800 a little bit. And I think that can definitely work for some people. But I also think, if you can really shave off, like if I can get my 14-minute 5K down to 13:30, I think that's going to pay a bit more dividends than getting a 149 down to maybe like a 148 lower, 147. And the aerobic work, threshold work, your body recovers from pretty quickly, whereas hard track running, it tends to just take a little bit more out of the system.
Yeah, because looking at the times, obviously the 10,000 metres, if you look at those times, how it would cross over, there's a hell of a lot of improvement there. And I'm not sure how a 4-minute mile and 7:57.3 crosses over to 5, but you think at 13:30 is definitely doable.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah, it's one of those things. You just got to make the most of the opportunities when they come. So hopefully there's a quick 5K the other day the guys ran, but you just got to wait for the right opportunity when the body's feeling right, and hopefully that can happen pretty soon.
I saw you run, 4 or 6 weeks ago down in Canberra here. There was that Stromlo 5K they did out there on the Saturday night out on the crit track.
Oh, yep, that's the one, yep.
Yeah. And I was actually pretty impressed with your actual running technique, your style. It's very compact, very neat. It looks like it's textbook. So I'm actually surprised to hear that it's...
That's like the best compliment. Honestly, that's probably the best compliment I've ever had. Like, I always find, maybe I'm my own harshest critic, but I really appreciate the feedback.
No, it was spot on. I was like, oh, man, this guy is just spot on. If I could ever run like anyone, to be that guy out there. So that's why I was surprised to hear that you're breaking down, because it just looks so smooth and like everything is working the way it's meant to, and there wasn't any wastage in the upper body, and the cadence was perfect, and it just looks so nice and neat. So yeah, is that something have you worked on over the years, or you probably just, I don't know, just always ran really, really neat?
Well, yeah. So I guess as a kid, I'm always a little bit, fascinated with some of the stuff that happens, with biomechanics. So I've always kind of thought about things a little bit with the biomechanics. I always thought I was a little bit rocking up the top. But yeah, I guess working on, I got to work with a guy who was a pretty good biomechanist when I was a junior, and I guess just implementing drills, and even with Philo's pretty big on some of the plyos and the drills. I think if you do a lot of that stuff, you're probably a bit less likely to kind of fatigue in some of those areas. So, yeah, I think that, a few things you can work. There's always some things you can work on. Standard drills is great to do. But yeah, no, that's really appreciated to hear back from.
No, it was definitely fluent, mate, very fluent. And like you said, it probably leads to that efficiency. And like I said, it'd be exciting when you're happy with what you've done in the shorter stuff and move up, because I think you're going to, like you said, you've proven you've done the marathon type sessions, and you feel you're quite good, and you've already mentioned you're quite strong as an individual. So interested to see how you do when you move into that half a marathon, because like I said, when you're strong and you're neat and you're tidy, and it's going to be exciting to watch, mate. So yeah,
you're making me want to do it earlier. Honestly, that's
you'll know when the time's right, mate, because obviously you sound like you're still pretty passionate and you love, and you got some goals there in the short ones, and eventually that may not be there. You know what I mean? You wake up one morning, you just think, okay, now the time's right. So I don't think you want to force it. You certainly don't want to force it, but it'll come for sure.
Yeah, no, that's really appreciated. Yeah, I know I remember I think it was Boxing Day, I got to do a 30K long run with Brett Robinson, and we went pretty hard. Like, it was out at Yass, so it was a hot day, and we went hard over the hills, and I was feeling really good till 27K, and I just hit the wall. And I just remember he was pretty compassionate. We slowed down the last 4K, but that just shows the kind of strength you need to be there. And I think it still takes that bit of a step up in the training. You really need to have the Ks under the legs, otherwise you're going to be pretty hard done by when you hit to 30K, I reckon.
Yeah, and that's it. And it'll be a good challenge for you as well if you feel that your body has that sort of breaking point, and you may have to up the mileage a bit. So that'll be something you'll just have to work with, just like you've had to do with all your other running through your career. So I mean, it's funny, marathon running. It's an old cliche, and I'll just keep saying it again, but it's a completely different beast on running event, because it's a silly thing to say, but if it was 35Ks, it'd be easy, but that extra 7Ks, it's not so much, it's the fatigue factor, obviously, because you've been out there for so long, but it's never like your body just starts shutting down. So yeah, it's I think it's what every runner should experience, but it'll certainly be exciting once you get over there, for sure.
Yeah, well, I can definitely relate to that. Like, I remember I did a marathon training study with the AIS, and we were doing some 35K pretty hard long runs. And yeah, you definitely notice the body, that kind of energy system when you hit that 35K mark, it really does start to hit the wall. I guess that's a huge part of it. You really, need to maximize your fuel system and how much damage the body's taking. So
yeah, and I think that's exactly right. I mean, it generally takes a few to get right, because it's not as if you're physically not prepared in a sense, but it's more of those little 1%ers like the nutrition and maybe the tapering and maybe maybe strengthening up certain parts of the body that get really loaded up. That doesn't necessarily happen under the 2-hour mark. So yeah, that's why I guess we all keep going out there running marathons, because there's so much room for improvement. You know what I mean?
It's a great event.
You can change 10 or 15 minutes in a marathon. You're not going to do that in a shorter event, for sure. So you've already ran today, I guess?
Yeah, I ran today. Just went down to the track and did a little bit down there. So just get out in the morning and hopefully
is that down at Jindy, is it?
Down at Jindy track, yeah.
So they've got a proper track down there, do they? Or
yeah,
it's just a grass track?
No, it's okay. It's the weirdest track. It's like it's probably it's got probably tar underneath, but they've got some AstroTurf on the top, so it's kind of like an AstroTurf.
Okay.
Circuit. It's not too bad when you wear the next, but it's definitely not tartan. But okay. It does okay. Like, it's still 400 meters, and it's not too bad. But if anyone's out there and has any connections to New South Wales sports, please put a tartan track down in Jindabyne.
AIA still got that gym set up at Thredbo. They built that swim centre and the gym and all that.
Yeah, they've still got, I know that I'm not sure if they still have the ownership rights over it, but Thredbo's got there's great facilities at Thredbo.
Yeah, they could whack a track in there. It'd be magic.
Yeah, definitely.
It'd be like a Thredbo gig, and have a meet every year, and beers afterwards in the sauna. It'd be great.
Well, there's so many people up here, like in terms of when there's running events on, when there's trail running events. It's probably worth them kind of investing in it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with fires and COVID and that, it's been funny Januaries the last few years, but they have that running week down there every January, and you can't get accommodation. It's such a great weekend. Some crazy events going on. Yeah, have you ever done that run up Krakenback up under the chairlift?
Oh, I haven't done that one. No,
that's a killer. That one's been going for decades. Yeah, it used to be called the Threadbow Enduro Weekend. It was on the Australia Day long weekend, and they used to do like a triathlon with a swim down in Lake Gingy there, ride up to Threadbow, which was 32k, and then run 2 laps of the village. So that was one, and then they had a duathlon run around the village. But yeah, they had the Krakenback Challenge, and you used to get big fields, start at the bottom of the chairlift there, and first man to the top. Yeah, Longbuster killer stuff. So
the hills are pretty vicious.
Yeah, it is, mate. It is. It's pretty much just there's a bit of a goat trail, but you pretty much just follow the chairlift towers up, and it gets a bit rocky climb at the top there up at Eagle's Nest. But yeah, it was a great event. But I guess back to my point that a track down there would be brilliant. Probably get some good events happening down there for sure. Bit of altitude just to test it. All you guys that just pop down from Perisher and Falls and kick butt, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good idea. I definitely think up at Falls Creek they've done the right thing in terms of investing in that trail maintenance. And it's a good thing to get all year up here and make sure that people have a ski season in these areas. But it'd be good to make sure summer tourism and probably help the guys out up here who might be getting a bit shorter on how the ski season's been going in the last couple of years with everything that's been happening.
All right, so you mentioned race coming up. What is it, 5,000 metres? Was that the state champs you mentioned, or is that what's coming up?
I raced the state champs. I just raced the New South Wales state champs and came 4th there.
Okay.
There's the National Sydney Track Classic week. I'll see how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling like I'm up to it, I'll probably give it a red hot crack. But if not, I'll probably just keep on going through and hopefully get ready for National 1500 in 6 weeks.
Yeah, with that calf niggle, you just don't want to push it. Is that right? Or
yeah, that's it. Probably err on the side of caution.
Yep. And what about any road runs between now and I don't know the end of the year?
I'll see what's coming up. Like I know that there's a tan run in April. I know quite a few people might be doing that.
Yeah.
That would be a good one to have as a bit of a hit out, because I know that everyone in kind of Victoria has a bit of a crack at that, and it's pretty famous one to do. Otherwise, it'll just depend on what's coming up in the calendar. And if there's anything that really looks like it's going to be a good one to try and get a bit of a time out, or just have a bit of a heart check on the system.
Look, Jojo, I just wanted to get further into you've been consistent there for quite a long time, so there must be some sort of training philosophies or some sort of ideas that you feel is best to sort of follow that's enabled you to do that. Is there something there you could sort of share with the listeners, or?
Yeah, definitely. I'd just say get as many consistent weeks as possible. Don't think in terms of 1 or 2 weeks. Really try and think in terms of 20 weeks to a year. And you really just want to make sure that no specific session is really going to make you, but it might incidentally break you. So just make sure you're just focusing on your body and recovery, and don't chase that one hit. Really just make sure that you're recovering and just make sure that you're looking after your body. So that's probably it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I remember when I spoke to Sean Crichton. I guess he had that incredible depth and length in running for so long, and he said the same. Don't go chasing the supersets. Don't try and press everyone with that Strava feed. It's just about layer upon layer upon layer, year after year, month after month, and eventually it comes good. So exactly. Yeah, definitely. And I hear a lot of people say that. So definitely great advice, mate. Yeah, look, all the best with what you've got coming up. I hope you dip that 8 and 15 a bit lower, and then grab that mile when it happens. No big deal. As you mentioned, it's not a main focus. But I think that 5 and the 10 is definitely in danger of lowering a fair bit. There's no doubt about that. And certainly I look forward to when you do. No rush though. step into on the road for that half and the marathon, mate, because we're pretty strong at the moment in distance running. It's exciting times, and it's so hard for guys to make teams at the moment. But certainly once you step into that half and 10, we're just going to have one more runner and just increasing that depth on the world scene. So yeah, really looking forward to that, JJ. So all the best with that. Enjoy the rest of your weekend up there at Perisher, and say good day to Dick for me. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show, mate.
Cheers, thanks.
No worries, JJ. All right, thanks, mate.
Mm-hmm.